My name's Nathan, and I'm going to talk about some of the improvements we've made to our Petrel plugin. The demonstration, there's be a few PowerPoint slides, and the demonstration, when we ran through it this morning, I should imagine it was taking about 25 minutes something, so it's not very long. Hopefully you'll all get some good information from it. So as I said, to start with, we'll just run through a few PowerPoint slides, and then we'll jump into the presentation, the demonstration quite quickly. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look to start with at the original plugin functionality. So some of you may have seen this functionality, some of you may not, but we'll just have a quick review of what the functionality is, and then we'll show you the new functionality. So what we've got up to and including version 17.3, and as I said, we'll show that in demonstrations. And then after the demonstration, we'll come back and we'll take some questions. I've set your microphones to mute, so you won't be able to ask questions as we go along, but at the end I'll open up the microphones again. If anyone wants to speak, they can do. Alternatively, they can send me questions through the feedback form from the webinar, or they can just send us some emails or pick up the phone and speak to us if they're interested. So for those of you who've seen the Petrel plugin before, the Petrel plugin's been around for probably 18 months or a couple of years now, and initially the functionality was split into two parts. The first part was the direct display of Petrel data on a Petrosys map. So that includes seismic navigation, interpreted data, surfaces and grids, welds, faults and culture from Petrel could be displayed onto your Petrosys map, and we'll see that in a demonstration. And then the second part of the plugin was the direct gridding of Petrel data. So seismic interpretation and well top stored in Petrel could be included in the Petrosys gridding function, and then surfaces generated from that data, and maybe incorporated other data from other data sources at the same time. And thirdly, we had the ability to write Petrosys grids directly back into the Petrel data folder, and we'll show you that in a demonstration as well. And finally, we could also display Petrel surfaces and wells in the Petrosys 3D visualization. So using our multiple connections, we could connect up to both Petrel and maybe Kingdom or OpenWorks data and combine these in the 3D visualization platform as well. So the new functionality, which has come in version 17.2, and some of it's coming in version 17.3, is the ability now to write point, line, and polygon data into Petrel. So any data which we have displayed on a Petrosys map, or any data we can connect to using our multiple connection technology, we can then transfer that into Petrel. So it might be Kingdom fault polygons or OpenWorks well data or attribute data from a variety of Esri format files, whether they be shape files or SD databases or file geodatabases. And also, we can also transfer contour data into Petrel, and including the Z-value information with that. What we also can do then is to export data from Petrel. So if you have point, line or polygon data inside of Petrel, we can then export that, and we can export that to a number of different Petrosys formats and also third-party formats like Esri shapefiles or Esri geodatabases or Google Earth KML files. So that's enough of the PowerPointing. We'll just drop out of the PowerPoint for the time being, and we'll go to Petrel. So we have Petrel, it's 2011. The plugin's working with 2011.2. I only have 2011.1 on this machine, but it works up to and including 2011.2. So we'll start the plugin, which is this icon on the right-hand side. And that starts the Petrosys main window. Now, most of you probably will have seen Petrosys version 17. For those of you that haven't, the plugin is operational in version 17, and it has the upgraded look and feel and more usable functionality than previous to version 16 and before. So we're using 17.3. 17.3 is about to be released. It hasn't been released yet. Most of the function you see, apart from a couple of things, which I will mention when I demo them, is available in 17.2 as well. So to start with, I'll just show you the previous plugin technology. So we'll go to the Petrosys map. So here we have a standard Petrosys map, and we'll open up a map file one we've had open before. It's called Petrosys webinar map. And as that opens up, what we can see over here is there's a number of pieces of information. So if I look at the grid, for example, this is a grid which is coming directly from Petrel. So this is Petrel project we're connected to, and we can actually drop in and see either from the input tab or the model tab in Petrel all the data that we can actually display. So all of this data on our map, this particular map we've got displayed, if we choose the data source, we can see that we have well data, seismic bin grids, which we can scroll on and click on, faults, and the colourful grid. This is all coming from Petrosys, and the value of doing this directly is twofold, really. First of all, we can make the high quality, presentation quality final maps that we see here. It's typical of Petrosys, and also when making the maps, we can do coordinate conversion on the data. So if the data you wanted to map to be in a different coordinate system than the data on the Petrel project, we could actually, using our map sheet, set up a coordinate conversion that would actually display the data in a different coordinate reference system using the EPSG data stored in Petrosys. At the same time, obviously, if all of your data is in Petrel, but we might have data that's coming from GIS, or we might have data that's coming from OpenWorks, or from Paradigm, or from Kingdom, or from other connected data stores to Petrosys. So the Petrosys map can sit on top of both Petrel and all the other data types and build our presentation quality maps very easily and very quickly. So that was the initial Petrel plugin functionality. The second sort of functionality we have is the surface modeling. And here we have our gridding and contouring. And again, if we open up our Petrel webinar gridding task, what this does is it connects up to Petrel, this Petrel project, and this particular one connects up to some seismic interpretation, and we'll grid that data directly. Now, if we wanted to, we could include some data from OpenWorks or include some data from Kingdom and mix and match our data again. But our gridding, we can use the Petrel seismic interpreted data and use the Petrosys algorithms and the Petrosys technology and functionality to give us a superior grid. What we've also got in this particular run is some grid processing, some well tie, which also uses Petrel data. So we're going to flex our depth grid, and we're going to flex it to the input data, which is actually some Petrel well data that's stored in Petrel, obviously, as well. And then what we're finally going to do is we're going to drop that Petrel grid, that Petrosys grid, into Petrel, and we'll just drop it into Petrel. We'll say OK. So if we just run through this particular task quickly, we'll overwrite some files that already exist. We do our gridding, we do some arithmetic operations, we do our well tie. I'm going to skip the volumetrics task in this case, and then we're going to drop the grid back into Petrel. And we see over here, if we go back to Petrel, we'll see that the grid has arrived in its Petrosys folder, and this grid is just placed inside the Petrel project. So you can use that object inside of Petrel for structural modeling or whatever else you need to use it inside of Petrel. Okay, so that functionality we've looked at is the functionality which was the first iteration of the Petrel plugin. What I'm going to show you now and move on to now is the new functionality, the functionality which most of you won't have seen. So again, we'll come out of the gridding and contouring. We'll reopen the map. Okay, so this is the Petrosys map. We'll open the webinar culture map. So this map that we're opening, it doesn't just have Petrel data on it. This has got some Kingdom data. So we have some Kingdom seismic data, some more Kingdom seismic data. It has some GIS data. There's a variety of data from other sources. So as we see here, we've got a variety of different data types, some 3D, some faults, some 2D seismic from Kingdom. We also have some a file geodatabase. Those of you knowledgeable about Esri products, we have the ability to read data from our file geodatabase as well as other Esri types like SDE or shape files or a variety of other GIS type information. So in this particular geodatabase, we've got a whole series of feature classes, one of which is Norway licenses. So what we're going to do is just using the Petrel plugin, we're actually going to connect up to this file geodatabase. You can see my map. So this file database here, which we can connect to, and I want to move that into Petrel. So I just press the right-hand mouse button, and I'll say Export Spatial Data, and I'm going to export it to Petrel, and I'm going to put it into a folder called Petrosys Culture, and it's boundary polygons, and we're going to write the data as one object, and we're going to call this Norway block boundaries. So we're just going to take this data and just drop it into Petrel. So we say OK. And if you see over here, it says the job's done. We'll see over here in Petrel, we now have the Petrosys culture, and inside that the object, which is the Norway block boundaries. And as we see on this particular 3D view, we've got our block boundaries up there in 3D. And if I was to open up a Petrel map window, so we can see where my data is. There we go. So there's the 3D. There's a section of the 3D, and this is just the section which appeared inside of that Petrosys map sheet. I'll show you in a second how we can actually bring more data in and actually all of the file data rather than just the data inside of that that map sheet. So if I go back to my map, we'll show some other sorts of data. So we're looking at our Petrosys map. We've displayed some data. In this case, this data has come from a Kingdom project. It might have come from SizeWorks. It might have come from Paradigm. It could have come from anywhere. In this case, it's from Kingdom. We select it, right-hand mouse button, Export Spatial Data. In this particular case, we're going to put it into a folder called Kingdom Seismic. In this case, it is 2D seismic lines, and we'll call this 2006 2D seismic. We'll say OK. And again, we start to see the 2D seismic lines, which are was displayed in my Petrosys map, now displayed inside of Petrel. And I could come in here, and it's just a Petrel object now, so I can do what I want with it. If I want to change the color, I can come in and change the. Oops, I'm clicking on the wrong item. I drop down. Here we go. Click on this one. Just change the color. So that's now in Petrel, and I can use Petrel, use it for Petrel purposes, whatever I want to use it for. If I go back to my Petrosys map, and similarly, if we wanted to, we could come in and we've got some fault data. We could actually export the faults, or we can export the 3D, or we can export the wells. Any item which is a line, point, a polygon displayed on my map, I can then export that to Petrel. And so this is the point and point, polygon and line data. Now at the moment we're picking off individual items, so one thing at a time, and it's restricted to the area of this map. Now what we've also done with the spatial data translator, the link to Petrel, so if I go back into surface modeling, we have the ability to build this into a task file, so we can run it in batch, so we can run things without doing it interactively, and we can also have more access to more data types and more coverage of data. So if I open up the task for this, okay, the first thing we're going to do is look at the geodatabase. As before, we looked at this file geodatabase that we had before where we just picked a subset of it. If we wanted to, we could pick the whole thing, pick the Norway licenses, and this time we're going to bring all of the data in. So we'll say OK, and I'll just run this one task. Come back over here, and now if I go to my Petrosys culture over here, we see we've got the all data, and if I go to my 2D window, I can now see that that is the licenses for the Norway sector as opposed to just the subset of data which I brought across just by the map. So it means you can bring data over. And also from a data management point of view, if you have a lot of data to move, you don't have to do it all interactively, or if you have data which changes over time, you can set these task files up and it will just rerun and reload data as and when you wish to. So it's quite a good way of getting data in bulk as well. If we go back to surface modeling, the second type is another data type which we can do in batch. I open this one. This one is actually, the data source is Excel, and we're going to Petrel, but we could go Excel to file geodatabase or Excel to, so there's sort of multiple connections and multiple ways of doing this. We've just picked up an Excel file and we've got a format for it, and it's actually going to load. These are a series of effectively well points with some top values, and so rather than having to load it into Petrel, I'm just going to drop that in as a point data set that I can actually use. So I'll say we'll write this in, we'll say OK, and I'll run that task. And over here now we'll see in our 3D, whoops, try not to make people sick, we should see somewhere some point data that hasn't, there we go, hasn't been switched on yet. So this one here, so I've got these points which are actually a well data set which is slightly below the reservoir that we were looking at before. So these are actually point data sets, and you can actually open these, look at them, and look at the attributes that are stored with them, and same name, well name. So they're built into the Petrel model now. So it's just a quick way of grabbing some data from Excel and dropping it into Petrel. I think there was one other thing in here. We talked about moving data to Petrel. We can also move data from Petrel. So this option here, so rather than going from something to Petrel, we can go from Petrel to something else, and we can go to, as I said, file geodatabases, a variety of different Petrosys format files, shape files. So if you wanted to put things out to a shape file, you can actually grab them. So in this case, we're going to grab from the Petrel project, we're going to grab a fault polygon. I'm going to drop it into a file called faults.kml, which is a Google Earth file. We'll just run this one. Now if I open up the file manager to look at the data, we'll just open up this one. His faults is, oops, it's at the top already. So we double click on this one. It should start Google Earth. It should zoom into the Gulfax area, and I should be able to hopefully see. So I've now moved that as a Petrosys fault file. the Petrel fault file into Google Earth. Could have moved it to a variety of different formats, as you saw. Okay, the two things which are in 17.3 that you won't be able to have access to if you only have 17.2 are the ability to write the KML file, and also the next thing I'm going to show you, which is the ability to take a point data set, which is an interpreted horizon, and take that from a third party and put that into Petrel. So if I open up that option, so it was called Petrel GIP. So what this does is we're actually going to extract some data, some interpreted data from in this case, a kingdom data set, which will do that. So we'll press this button. It'll go away, look at the kingdom data set I'm going to connect to. It's given me a graphical representation. If I wanted to, there's obviously some misties in my interpretation here. I might say, well, I actually don't want to see all of that data, so I could actually edit using a hand-picked polygon. So I get rid of some of the data just quickly. Delete outside. Okay. So I've saved that file. Come out of this. And the second option is to take that GIP file, which is a temporary file, the file that we've just created, and put that into Petrel. In this particular case, I'm going to put that in as a two-way time interpretation. So it was actually for the, and I'll just run that option. And that again will drop a data set from Kingdom into Petrel. This is showing in TBD only, so I'll just set it to any. And then what I can do is, oops, sorry, it's jerking around. Go to settings and set the info. Where am I? Okay, so we see the Z values, the color. So this was meant to be a how to use Petrel lesson, but there we go. So that's how we've now moved the point data from another interpretation system, which in this case was Kingdom, but it could have been SizeWorks, and then that will be now available inside of Petrel. Maybe you've got people working in both Kingdom and Petrel, and you want to let them look at each other's interpretation. There's a way of sharing that data around. Okay, that's the end of the demo and the things I wanted to show you for this. So we showed you how to move point, polygon, and line data into Petrel from a variety of connected sources, and also the ability to then move the data from Petrel into either a number of Petrosys sources or a number of GIS sources, and also how we've done it interactively, clicking on things and moving them, or in a batch job where we've set up jobs to actually move things running using a task file.